Welcome to the TechSpace. In this video, we're going to be going over arrays and how to make arrays in C++. So basically, what arrays are arrays are variables that can store multiple types of information, or not multiple types of information, but multiple values. So say we have an integer x and we have one value stored in it, because we know if I create an integer x, I can only set that equal to some integer like 50. I can't set it to 50 and 54 and then end it, because when I go to cout x and in that line, we're going to get an error because you can't store two integer variables in x because it's only made to store one value or one integer. So basically what we do to fix this is create an array. So arrays are basically the same thing as a variable. Same way, just declare the variable and we'll say double, give it a name, and this is going to be number. And I'll say number and then we're just going to set that. After that, you put brackets. So these brackets, the square brackets, are going to be used right after we name that array with how many elements we want in that array. So instead of just storing one value in an integer or in a variable, we can now store several. So I can store 5 double variables inside this array, and this will be equal just like a regular variable would be. I can store now 5 double variables. So I can say I want 60, 67, 34, 20, and 34. And that's 5 variables. So now I have 5 numbers that are of the integer, or not integer, but they're doubles, and they're stored in this array of 5 elements. And you want to put the elements inside curly braces and end that with a semicolon, separating each element with a comma. Now, why this is useful will come into play later on in programming, but this is very useful because you can store tons of information in arrays without having to say, integer, or in this case, we'd have double n is equal to 60, then we'd have, double h is equal to 67, and then we'd have to keep going on and on to create all of these variables for all these different numbers. So instead of doing that, I can just store all of these in an array, and then when we want to access one, we just output 1 to the screen. So the way we do this is a little bit different. When you want to call an array, we want the variable, we want the brackets of course, and we're going to want to have the inline. Well, you don't really need the inline, just makes it look a little cleaner. But inside these brackets, we're going to need to call the number that we want. So we're not going to enter the number directly. So if I want 60, I'm not going to enter 60 inside these brackets. What I'm going to do is enter 0. So when I put 0 in here, I'm calling the first element in that set or that array. So in this array, I basically start with element 0, and that's basically what they're called. So I have element 0, element 1, element 2, element 3, element 4. Now there's 5 things inside this array, but this is how we're going to be calling them. So this is named 0, this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we never really get a 5th element because in computer languages, we usually start with 0 instead of starting with 1, which is how we count in our natural world. So we start with 0 and use 0 as an actual object. So since we're doing that, we're gonna access this by putting 0 in between the brackets, and the computer is gonna say, okay, that's the first element within this set or this array. So when I output this, it's gonna say 60, which is again 0, or the element in position 0 inside of this array. So if I close this and I just say, I want to print out every number, or every number inside that array, what I can do is just copy this, paste it 5 times, and I want 1, which is going to call 67, 2, which will call 34, 3, which will call 20, which will call 20, and then 4, which will call 34 again. So as you can see, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is how we're going to be accessing the things inside this array. We'll print it out, and there you go. You get element 0 through 4, or element 1 through 5, however you want to look at it. This is very important to understand. So just remember that when you're doing it, you count from 0, and then you start, not from 1, 0. And you can easily test that by just plugging a number in here, counting the positions, and figuring it out that way. But remembering it is basically essential to programming, so make sure you remember when you're accessing variables or elements inside of an array, you need to start counting with 0 to declare the first element, and so on to declare the other elements in the array. So that's how that works. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and if you have any questions, post them below.